An opening to open restaurants is sending inspectors scrambling. A Republican elections official in Colorado calls on the vice president to overturn the election and give President Trump a second term. The sanitization steps that have become routine could be worse than useless, actually harmful in some cases. You raised an astonishing amount to buy meals from struggling restaurants and get them to frontline workers. And my lessons learned from trying to teach a toddler about Christmas. All that is next. Colorado cracked the door open for businesses to reopen in Douglas County, and they have been streaming through it since, anxious at any opportunity to get restaurants, gyms, event spaces back open for indoor use. It has made for an exceptionally busy holiday weekend for the inspectors who've been rushing here and there trying to approve each individual location. More than 100 in DougCo since Wednesday. Today, our Steve Steger tagged along.
First thing I always look for when you come up are what do they have post.
This is a big day for Le Peep Restaurant near County Line in Quebec.
It's Kevin, right?
It is.
Sean, how are you?
Very nice to meet you.
Douglas County Inspector Sean Owens is meeting with the owner, Kevin Wessel, to decide whether or not Le Peep is taking strict enough COVID precautions.
Daily employee symptom and exposure checks.
We have this that we do twice a day, opening and at noon.
Okay.
If the restaurant passes, they'll be allowed to roll back to level orange restrictions and open their dining room to 25% of the normal capacity. Owens has a checklist, making sure the required signs are up, including a QR code folks can scan to make a formal complaint about the business to Tri-County Health. And he's also checking ventilation.
On warm days, keep the doors open if you can.
We have two doors we can open, and that's the patio door and this door, in which anything we will.
Perfect.
And making sure the tables are spaced out the required 10 feet.
Can we hold that?
Pull the tape on that one. 11 feet.
Good.
Above and beyond. Very good.
Douglas County's 5-star program got state approval the day before Christmas Eve. In the 5 days since, more than 100 DougCo businesses have gotten their green light, the vast majority restaurants. Owens, who's a civil engineer for the county, has done about a dozen of these inspections. And he says most businesses he's visited are prepared.
What I like to see is that they take the effort to review the state, what's on the state site.
These are things that we've always done from day one of the pandemic. It's social distancing, it's sanitization, it's wearing masks.
Wessel says when he heard about the program in Mesa County months ago, he started making more changes to prepare Le Peep if that became possible in Douglas County. And today, that work paid off.
If you can sign here.
Sure. We're going to add 10 to 12 tables inside social distancing, which will employ 3 to 4 people more every day, possibly 5 to 6. So what that does for me is it allows my employees to get a paycheck. It allows them to have a living.
So you may be asking yourself, does a civil engineer have the expertise to do a public health inspection? All of those inspectors are trained by the Tri-County Health Department. And also, for the record, Owens inspects highways and bridges and the projects there for a living. So he's pretty thorough. Now, each municipality in DougCo actually has a team of these volunteers who have been going out, Kyle, and inspecting these restaurants, these gyms, and these indoor spaces to get them ready for the 5-star program.
That's pretty wild. You've got a road and bridge inspector in there checking out your restaurant. Yeah, I got some concerns about the structural integrity of this table here, Put a wad of napkins under the one leg. So obviously there's all these various things that they have to comply with that they're checking for. What are the businesses telling inspectors is like the biggest hurdle that they keep running into?
The thing that they seem to be the most nervous about is something that they've dealt with now for months, is this idea that everyone on the inside has to wear a mask. And if you get caught without it, you stand a chance of one of these strikes that might actually get you out of the program. So they say in a lot of these cases, you've got a hostess who has to deal with people who want to have a fight about not wearing a mask. So one of the things Owens tries to make sure in all these different restaurants is that there's a plan in place, that a manager is ready to respond to that to make sure that they can sort out any sort of mask issues.
Boy, you hope that these places that just want to get open and keep people safe can do it without people going in there and being flaming morons about the mask thing, because that's the last thing those restaurants need. All right, well, we wish them all the best. Steve, thank you. Gorgeous sweater as well. Hey, here's some good news for you. COVID hospitalization numbers in Colorado continue to trend down. We've seen this for a couple of weeks now. Right now, we're at 1,094 patients, a steady decline from our highest point, but considering we're still 3 to 4 times October's hospitalization numbers, it just shows you how large that latest wave was. New cases statewide are also trending in the right direction. Today we are at 1,449. That's well below the weekly average of about 2,000 new cases per day. We're seeing a bump today in the positivity rate. At last check, it was at 8.7%. So we look at that weekly average, just smooths out the highs and the lows, and that puts the positivity at 6.25%. The percentage of tests coming back positive has been declining now for weeks, but has not come back down under the 5%, which is what public health experts would really like to see. Today's next question comes from a viewer named Dennis, wondering about COVID vaccines. Dennis asks whether we're going to have to get this vaccine every year, like a flu shot, or just until the pandemic ends. Dennis' answer here is, we're not sure. As in the doctors, not sure. Nine health expert Dr. Pyle Coley told us, we just don't know how long the immunity provided by that vaccine is going to last. Scientists say that patients who received the vaccine during the clinical trials, they still had strong immunity 3 months after they got the vaccine. Because this was pushed out so quickly, those people are still being tracked to see when the immunity wanes. The chief concern was getting a vaccine that was immediately effective, not necessarily one that was long-lasting. They keep studying that. Dr. Coley also said that it is possible, but less likely, that widespread vaccination might eradicate COVID-19 altogether. In that case, obviously, you wouldn't need the vaccine year after year. Colorado's elections officials, Republicans and Democrats, have had a united front in knocking down false claims of election rigging. Until now. Douglas County's Republican clerk Merlin Klotz has now embraced the strategy of having Vice President Mike Pence overturn the election results and just declare that President Trump has been reelected. It's not how America does it, but Klotz would not talk to us today about his claim on social media that Vice President Pence has the ability, he says, to throw out the election results in 7 states won by President-elect Joe Biden. Just toss him because he lost. This unsupported theory that a vice president can essentially just pick the next president, which would have been super handy for Al Gore, is being promoted in a lawsuit by some Republicans in Texas who are seeking to overturn the election. A widely respected former police chief in Denver has passed away, Dave Michaud. He retired in 1998 after more than 30 years with the department. Michaud was known for, among other things, for handing out his personal phone number to gang members, offering to help them move past a life in crime. Current Denver Police Chief Paul Pazin says he and Michaud spoke often.
I called him on a regular basis, to be honest with you. The Chief Michaud, was great. We spoke every couple of months, and he passed along his wisdom and guidance. He's a great leader that I think will be sorely missed in our state and certainly in our department.
After he retired as police chief, Dave Michaud went on to lead the state's parole board until 2010. Hey, you have done something really impressive to support Colorado's struggling restaurants and give a high five to hospital workers at the same time. So last week we talked here about maybe ordering a whole bunch of meals from restaurants and having them delivered to hospital staff who had to work over the holidays. Well, you raised $162,000 since last Wednesday to do that. That is $162,000 that will go out to be spent at restaurants in the Denver metro area, buying meals that will then be dropped off for hospital workers around the area during the holiday season. Frontline Foods Denver provides the volunteer coordination. World Central Kitchen is the nonprofit partner behind this. And then you came in with $162,000 in a couple of days. And that made it all happen. It's just the latest in your string of incredibly generous Word of Thanks micro-giving campaigns. So, you know, one Colorado nonprofit effort a week, $5 donations at a time. You've raised $2.3 million in the last 6 months. $2.3 million. Just a group of people who sits around and watches this show. That's pretty wild. I'm going to be back on Wednesday with an idea about how together we can really help some families that are in a tough spot right now. Infectious disease experts say that grocery wipe down I keep doing is not necessary, and all that disinfecting could actually cause harm. A giant in Colorado's arts scene reflects on her 50 years.
And I knew this wonderful, rich background that was here in Denver at one point. So I had that kind of vision, but also I also knew that people shouldn't think that the arts just exist in New York or LA, Hollywood.
A conversation with Cleo Parker Robinson, next. May I make a recommendation for a good read today? This actually comes from our producer today, Jeremy. It's an NPR article about how COVID is spread. It includes the perspective of an atmospheric chemist from Colorado State University. So I'm not sure about you, but I've continued some of my disinfecting routines, even as we've learned that some of them are not all that useful in the fight against COVID. You know, I'll wipe down the groceries or whatever, thinking, you know, what harm could it do? So actually, it could do some harm. This is in the article. The research is pretty clear that the risk of contracting COVID from surfaces is low. It's airborne transmission that's the real concern. And this article touches on how putting disinfectant particles into the air all the time, not great for our lungs. Put a link to that NPR story on the next Facebook page.
A wintry start to the final week of 2020 here in Colorado. We're watching some heavy snowfall moving into the mountains. For the metro area, it'll just be light overnight into tomorrow morning. Up in the mountains, however, with this heavy snow, we could potentially be looking at avalanches. This is our view across the Loveland ski area, the Eisenhower-Johnson tunnels, where just a few flurries are falling right now. But you can see on HD.9 this next wave that is pushing in across western Colorado. That's where we are going to see the heaviest snow. The winter storm warnings going for the southern San Juans. Advisories stretching across northwestern Colorado and even into northeastern Colorado with the avalanche watch late tonight through tomorrow. Again, the heaviest snowfall arrives overnight into early Tuesday morning. It's fairly calm here in the metro area. Can't rule out seeing a couple of flurries, and then by tomorrow evening we're watching this storm system push out. How much snowfall stacks up here in the metro area? About a trace to 2, with an additional 2 to 5 inches coming into the foothills. This storm system charges off to the northeast, making way for a ridge of high pressure that allows our temperatures to warm up just a bit. Mid-30s on deck tomorrow. We will be back into the 40s by the end of 2020. Kick off the new year with a few flurries too.
Corey Reppenhagen is on the weather beat.
Another light snow. The worst start in 18 years. New year, happy thoughts.
That was Corey Reppenhagen on the weather beat.
The first Christmas that your kids really get into it, that's special. And during a pandemic, at least with my 2-year-old, it also got a little weird. So first off, you should know that my daughter thinks that it's hilarious that her baby sister doesn't have teeth. So that was one of her first questions about the baby Jesus. Teeth? No teeth. So now any mention of the baby Jesus in our home is sometimes followed by my daughter chuckling and going, no teeth. We managed to drive home the point that Christmas is baby Jesus' birthday because my daughter was absolutely insistent that we had to have a birthday cake on Christmas. It wasn't until Christmas Eve that it became apparent that our daughter expected baby Jesus to come to his birthday party at our house on Christmas. We have not met many new people during the pandemic, so the idea of meeting someone new, the baby Jesus, was the cause for much excitement, along with all the questions about whether we would have to wear masks and give baby Jesus some space. So I was trying to puzzle together an answer to that would be both acceptable to a 2-year-old and theologically sound, but then her 30-second attention span elapsed and it was on to the next topic. My daughter unwrapped her presents quite tentatively. I'm thinking that she knows that shredding random papers around the house does not always make mommy and daddy happy. Stockings, though? She attacked those like a raccoon in a dumpster because she learned that they contain chocolate. The pandemic has pretty much been a parade of various delivery people, and to my daughter, Santa is just the latest one. She now believes that Santa will be coming by regularly to drop off things that we need, like he's Instacart. This morning, my daughter told me to ask Santa to get her some new underwear. I told her that I would take care of it, and she said no, she wanted Santa to deliver the underwear. In a perfect world, we would have celebrated Christmas with extended family and not over Zoom. But you know what? We came as close to perfect as 2020 allows. And that birthday cake was delicious. Despite the pandemic, the mission hasn't changed.
It makes me really happy to know that we can provide that kind of grounded space for artists to become, and also to help this community grow.
The 50th year, like none before it. And a startlingly hilarious holiday fail next. Cleo Parker Robinson's name has not always been synonymous with arts and culture in Colorado. She built that reputation over 50 years, half-century of bringing people together through dance.
We're here at the Cleo Parker Robinson Dance Theater and Studio. I'm Cleo Parker Robinson. I'm the founder and artistic director. We started the company in 1970, right here in Denver, not far from where we are on 20th and Washington. Then we were able to acquire this building, which is a shorter AME historic church. It came out of workshops and community artists. And it was really something, really what a powerful time. Just coming out of the 60s into the 70s, that was a time that shaped our company. And I knew this wonderful, rich background that was here in Denver at one point. So I had that kind of vision, but also I also knew that people shouldn't think that the arts just exist in New York or LA, Hollywood. Granny dances to a holiday drum. We're really looking forward to what was the new element we were going to bring into Granny this year. Well, the new element was our surprise, that it would be all virtual. We would have done Granny 29 years, and I've been performing in Granny and directing it and carrying on in it for almost 30 years. We are now celebrating our 50th anniversary season. I'm so inspired by the artistry and the beauty around me that I don't know that I'm tired. I don't know that my knees are not working. So it makes me really happy to know that we can provide that kind of grounded space for artists to become, and also to help this community grow.
That woman is a force. It is the thought that counts this and every holiday season, and that's the reason why we celebrate your holiday fails, like Tracy's inflatable Santa, who fell down into the basement window well and then reinflated later in that position, scaring the you-know-what out of her when she came downstairs and saw that guy staring upside down at her in the window. One Colorado's inconvenience is another's opportunity. That and your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today, it checks all the boxes. You've got a Jeep, you've got snow, you've got a Jeep driver doing Jeep things on said snow. Why did they do it? Because they can do it. Next viewer named Paul took this picture in the parking lot of the old Chicago at Iliff and Buckley in Aurora. Paula writes in tonight to say, just want to let you know that as a child, we always had a birthday cake for Jesus on Christmas Day. I continued the tradition with my children, and they continue it with their children. I love that, and I'm glad we're not alone. See you next time.